everybody, and welcome to Wheel Talk, the podcast with a guy in a wheelchair and a girl in a wheelchair. Well, hey, what up, Brittany?
Oh, it's going. I don't know. I'm like, this is probably too much information, but I'm like the week before my period. So I am like the most irritable, tired, horrible nerve pain. So I haven't had like the greatest couple days, but I had a good morning. So I'm feeling very much more optimistic this morning. But last night I was so grumpy when I went to bed. I'm like, I just need chocolate and sleep, I think. But right now I hate being paralyzed. I hate the world. I hate my everything. It was just bugging me so much last night, but that's probably too
We
much
can
information.
we can double click on that later if you want, because
Yeah, let's do it.
I really want to talk more about that.
That's
But yeah,
interesting. We have something way more exciting than my period to talk about because Fred had a magic gig. We had to reschedule this whole podcast because Fred booked a magic gig. And so I'm sure everybody is so curious, as am I, about how this came to be. How did you get this magic gig? Did you get paid for it? Was it for like a group? How big was I have so many questions. So let's just start with like, how did this even come up? Like, how did you get this magic gig?
okay. Well, before I talk about it, I just wanted to thank you guys, thank you, Brittany, for really encouraging me. Like, you guys have really been saying, like, oh, you're a good magician. You should go out there and do things. And I've been forcing myself to do magic a lot more lately, and I've been going for it, and it's really good. So yeah, going back to last night. So honestly, it was like a very warm, beautiful, intimate little gig. It was 74th birthday, and there were mostly elderly guests. Chris was catering, and I came along to do some magic. It was actually a surprise. So when I introduced myself, they were like, "Oh, hi!" I was like, "I am Fred. I'm the stripper." So it was a good little opening gag. But yeah, I went in confident. But what I didn't expect was like how meaningful it felt. Like there was a moment that really struck with me. Was the birthday lady? Her name was also Chris, and she told me that it was the best birthday she'd had in 74 years. She hugged me, kissed me on the cheek. It was genuinely moving, you know. So yeah. And the other thing that happened, which was really nice, was that they invited me to stay for dinner, and I did. I didn't want it to be inconvenient for Chris, but she said it was fine, and I said, you know, if you really want me to stay, I will, and I did. I ended up talking with people, and you can learn a lot from the elderly. So, you know, I was talking to people that have been married for over 50 years, listening to their stories. Also gave me an opportunity to perform a little bit more magic that was a little bit more personal with the birthday lady, and just sort of being present with them. And yeah, it was really good. It really reinforced something for me, which I've known for a while, that magic isn't just about the tricks. You know, it's about connection. It's the same thing I've been feeling at work recently. You know, just sort of slowing down, listening to people, trying to leave people feeling a bit better than before. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what happened last night, and it was a really fun experience.
So did I think like you skirted over that? Did Chris get you the gig or like I know that yeah, okay, so she mentioned that you were a magician and
Yeah.
okay.
So
That's very cool. I see that's why I think you guys should have like that like duo, like catering entertainment package sort of thing going on.
catering and conjuring.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. You could come up with so many fun things. You could even draw your own like, flyers or like business media kits or
Mm,
whatever because you're an awesome drawer. That's very cool. So it was how many people were there? Like you said it was
7.
small. Oh, seven.
Yeah, so
Okay,
there was
so
7.
it's a decent like opportunity to interact with almost everybody there.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I've
cool.
actually got some cool pictures. I was gonna upload them. I bloody forgot, but I've got them on my phone so I can show you. Sort of like, but yeah. So there was some really lovely pictures. Like this picture was actually really lovely. If you look at, I don't know if you can see it, but there's
I
me
can, yeah.
and I should have uploaded it. It's a bit late now, but anyway. So yeah, it was just really nice because yeah, there were 7 of them all sat around the dinner table, and it lends itself to such a patient performance, and we're all at eye level, so the wheelchair doesn't matter. I'm not competing with sort of alcohol or loud music or anything like that. So it was just a really lovely, like the presentation and the pacing and the timing could be a lot slower and patient. It was really just a golden experience, and they were all again, like quite old, so it wasn't your usual thing, but they absolutely loved it. Yeah. So Chris was catering, and she said she'd catered for them before, and she said, "Oh, you know, my boyfriend's a magician. Would you like some magic for your birthday?" And they were like, "Yeah." So
Mm,
I came along and I did it.
that is awesome. When you say like old, are you talking like because you said it was seven, she was 70 what? 70
74.
74. Okay. So were they like typically around that age or were they like older or like a mix of like, from like 65 to like 80?
So good question. Probably that. The
Oh.
youngest person there was probably 55. That was the
Oh, okay.
granddaughter. So there was a granddaughter who was
Oh,
55. And she kept calling the other lady grandma. And I was like, whoa, wow. Like, so it's, yeah, it was lovely. It was a really cool, intimate group. They were very, very lovely. Like I say, I hadn't expected to be asked to stay for dinner, and I didn't want to be cheeky. But she was like, "I'd love you to stay," and I think that's really lovely when, because that's what happened at the other gig as well. Because I did one last week, and I was like, "No, no, no, it's fine. I'll go." But then I thought, "Oh, what would happen if I did stay?"
yeah.
And I
I
did,
think
and
that's what
yeah,
I would never invite somebody to stay at something like that if I didn't genuinely want them to stay. I don't think I would anyway. So I think that if you get invited to stay after you've performed or interacted with somebody, I think that it's a genuine invitation. Um, and I think that's the coolest way to get to know people. Like there's been some really cool places that I've gone that I haven't known anybody that it's been kind of really nerve wracking. But then I've stayed, not, I'm thinking I'm going to go for like, 20 minutes because it's an obligation. And then I end up meeting people that are really cool and you get to chat with people that you don't know. And that's one of the cool things about being in a setting where you don't know anybody is there's so much to learn about one another. So it's almost fun in a way when you get those opportunities. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, what did Chris make for the dinner? I'm so curious about her catering. This is like a little segue from your magic, but
no,
I was
it
just
was
curious
cool.
what you make for people.
So we had pork Wellington, which was really
Oh,
nice. It's like a filet mignon
yeah. I'm
inside a pastry with like ham and oh, it was just. But I normally get the leftovers, so I've had it before, but I've never had it presented on the plate with the roast potatoes and there's like a what is it a cauliflower puree and there's like a jus which goes over it. There's like braised cabbage. Oh, it was amazing. The starter was like beetroot and avocado, like all presented in like a little ring, or not in a ring, but like in a little tower. And then the dessert was a burnt Basque cheesecake, which was amazing. So yeah, I got I got fully the whole three course, and there was canapes as well. So I hadn't anticipated that. And to double down on that, like when they said, "Do you want to stay for dinner?" and Chris said she was serving at 7 and it was 10 past 7, I thought we're probably going to all stay sat at the table, right? And she's just going to bring the meal out. But that no, we actually had to move to the lounge area and then there were canapes and then I was like, "Oh goodness, I hadn't anticipated that I would be sort of interacting with them in this in this much of an intimate setting. I thought we were just going to stay sat at the table." But that's when I started asking them about like, "Oh, what's the secret to a happy marriage? You guys have been married 52 years. Like, tell me the secrets." And I was really engaging them in like interesting conversations, and I was trying to learn from them. You can learn a lot from people that have been married that long, and it was really wonderful. So yeah, I had a great time.
that's a wonderful segue to what's coming up for me next week, which is my anniversary with Joe. So what did you learn from these people? Because we've been married for 15 years. I'm so curious what you learned from these people about the secret to a happy marriage.
Uh, well, it was interesting because I was trying to tell them about like some certain issues that Chris and I have been having at the moment, and I realized that this is like quite a ubiquitous problem, like with a lot of couples. It's like, oh, sometimes I feel like she expects me to read her mind, but she doesn't want to communicate her needs. Like I say, I think it's healthy if you communicate your needs, then I can meet those needs. But she said, oh, you should use your initiative, and I'm like, oh, like that sounds like you want me to read your mind, and these ladies were like, no, no, no. And they were sort of taking Chris's side, and then I could see the husbands across the room being like, oh, yeah. And I'm thinking, that's so interesting. There must be some sort of compromise that happens, or that, yeah, there's a lot of talk about cleaning the toilet, like, and that's like an issue for us at the moment, like, and it's so odd that these are just issues that like that aren't special to us. They Every single couple goes through issues about cleaning the toilet. How clean should a toilet be? I mean, it's where you deposit urine and feces, right? So you're not going to eat your dinner off it. Like, I would clean it if it was filthy, but like, Chris thinks it should be cleaned every week and it should be very, very shiny, and that's fine. But anyway, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. But it's interesting to know that I'm not the only one having these arguments or like disagreements about the cleanliness of one's toilet.
That's hilarious. I'm on very clean toilet side of the camp. So my toilets, whether I shit in them or not, are all very clean, which annoys me, except for the downstairs one because I don't go downstairs all the time. But I told Jacob that if his toilet's disgusting when I go down there, that he's in trouble. So he's learned how to clean it decently well. But yeah, I'm a very clean toilet person. Not that like is, a conversation we need to have, but yeah. That's interesting. I think if these things weren't common among men and women, there wouldn't be books like Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And that is a very popular book for a reason, because we definitely have different ways that we move about the world and the way we perceive things. And we're generally nurturers who anticipate other people's needs, or we try our best to. So we've noticed things about kids, about anybody that we're around. And men are problem solvers, and they need to know what the problem is in order to solve it. They need clear communication about that, which is so hard to learn because we try and anticipate what the problem is and solve it before, their needs even are being communicated. But sometimes that gets into trouble too, because I have lots of like guy friends, and more than one of them have been like, can you stop that? Whatever you're trying to do to anticipate my needs, like, it's annoying. And so I've been told numerous times that sense of nurturing or whatever is overbearing sometimes. And it can be, I think, like, if you aren't careful. So yeah, it's normal. And
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
said, I've been married for 15 years and we still fight about the stupidest shit that
yeah,
is absolutely ridiculous. So
yeah.
yeah, welcome to the club.
Weirdly enough, one of the older ladies, Maddie, she was like the grandma. Well, I guess they were all quite old, but she was saying that back in the day, like, her husband was the breadwinner, and I guess she was like the housewife, so she would take care. They were like those traditional gender roles that like really worked because they knew their roles. Like, she would do the cleaning, the cooking,
Yeah.
the childcare, and he would work and provide all the money for that, which doesn't really exist that much anymore because, or maybe it does in certain areas, but it's a little bit more. I guess it's looked at in a different way nowadays. But they were saying it worked really, really well, because they just knew what was to be expected. There was no
Yeah.
arguments really. So, and also how a village like raises a family, and how they
Mhm.
had like such a community where they lived, and where they'd meet people outside the school gates, and you know someone would take home like six kids home in the car. There weren't like seatbelt rules or anything like that, and it was just like, I guess, a bit of a simpler time, and that really helped, and it was just really lovely just learning from these people about just just how they grew up, and how things are different now, and obviously times change, but I really connected with them. And like I say, I did want to talk about the magic a little bit more, but what I really got from it was a connection with these people. I just thought, wow, what when you meet people that are old and wise, you can really learn a lot from them because they've been around a lot longer than you. And I just think, I'm like, if I was to go back to myself 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would think I was quite naive, right? So I'd love to go back and give myself advice. So if there's any sort of wisdom that I could glean from these elderly folk that could help me, then I was all ears. I was really a patient, keen listener. I was asking a lot of questions, and yeah, they had a lot of wisdom to share.
Yeah. I do wish that we kind of had a little bit more of that community spirit that used to exist. We just don't have it anymore because we feel like we have a sense of community on social media. But simple things like community dances, like, I know that my grandparents, there were community dances all the time at all the different community halls where I grew up. When my my parents were younger, and when, especially when my grandparents were, young, people, young adults or whatever, like in their 20s and 30s. And now there's not that thing, it has to be some sort of like fundraiser or something for it to be dance. And it's not like the community just comes to that event and hangs out and gets to know each other. It's you buy tickets to it to, support somebody's sports team or whatever. And I just think that it's for the sake of socializing. That doesn't happen anymore, which I think is a little bit sad. Yeah, I think that there was like a simpler time. I'm curious though, like going back to the magic, if there was a trick that, because I know that you, every sort of magic gig, you have a trick that you think landed really well and that's very memorable. Is there one that they were so impressed by, or that you thought, you were super proud of, or
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question. There was some. I was pretty proud of my whole performance. I was quite patient and I was quite open. I mean, I actually got the whole thing on camera because I said, "Oh, I hope you guys don't mind, but because I'm a beginner, I'd like to film it, just not for social media or anything like that, just because I'd like to." Give the best way to get feedback is to see myself perform. And they were like, oh,
yeah,
absolutely. And I was lucky enough to put my camera on a tripod and there was a mirror behind so I could see exactly what I was filming. I got a really good shot of everything. Also, they were taking photos and videos that they shared back with me, which was amazing. But I was pretty happy with the way that it went, as in, like, I always open with, magic for me is about connection. It's not about fooling anyone. It's about moments of shared wonder. I'm going to share with you tonight some moments that seem, statistically improbable or perhaps, utterly
mm-hmm.
impossible. But I'd like to invite you to just marinate in the mystery, and that's what magic is about for me. And I like to set their expectations and keep your expectations low. I'm not Paul Daniels. I use Paul Daniels because they brought it up before because he was an old English magician. But yeah, anyway, so it was really nice that I set the scene. And was there any favorite? I mean, there was some tricks that I've done before that have got amazing reactions, that I got surprisingly lukewarm reactions to.
Oh,
But then there were some that, again, there's like one of a very, 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 very simple trick. I call it Lucky Ladybug, and it's just so simple, but it's so killer. It's the one that the lady who I did at the hotel, she loved it. So basically,
Pip or
I have
whatever.
this. Yeah, Pip. Yeah, Pip.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I just have these cards, and I say, look, they've all got ladybugs on them. If you hold this one, and they say, oh, wave your hand over the top to see if you can bring the ladybug back. And when she waves her hand over the top, she has a little ladybug there. And it's not really, doesn't take a genius to like reverse engineer how I did it. I've obviously stuck it on her hand when she wasn't looking, right? But oh my god, I said, do you have a favorite trick? She was like, oh, the ladybug. The ladybug. I'm going to keep that forever. I know exactly where I'm going to put it. When I get home, I've got this. And she kept all of the little things, like signed cards, like all the little mementos. She's like, I'm going to keep them all in a little drawer. I've had such a wonderful time. I know exactly where my little lucky ladybug's going to go. And she was so made up with this little ladybug. And you can order like 100 of them off Amazon for about $5, right? So they're like, it's tiny, but it has such a sentimental meaning because it was a real moment of magic. So when she waves her hand over and she sees that the ladybug, like, she kept thinking that it had come off the card and onto her hand, which she was suspended in that disbelief, which I found remarkable. I was like, all of the lads, all of the men, like one of them was a chemical engineer, so I'm sure he wasn't necessarily fooled. But that's what I mean. Magic isn't about fooling people; it's about creating magic memories. And this was, she was just blown away, and she was like, "Oh, where's my ladybug? Where's my ladybug?" 'Cause when she'd lost it, and I found it on the floor, she's like, "Oh, I need to keep this. I need to keep this. I know exactly where I'm going to put it when I get home." And so that was just a really special thing. Like, of all the wonderful, impossible things that I'd done that night, the lucky ladybug was the one that she utterly adored, and that was her favorite one. And sometimes it surprises me that simple magic sometimes hits so much harder than clever magic. It's
Yeah.
glorious.
Um, I was just gonna ask something. Oh, do you ever, are you ever surprised that people like think are wowed? Because like I wonder if it for you loses the, like, you know how it's done. So are you
Mm.
ever like they're gonna they're gonna see me do this and it's gonna be like wah wah? Uh, or are you like, I don't know. I just always wonder if like magicians are like, think that we're stupid. Like, how are they not seeing how this is done? Like, I don't get it. Do you ever think
Yeah.
that?
Um, there is a part of me sometimes that does think. I try not to because I don't want to ever think that the participants I'm sharing the magic with are fools. But sometimes I have to remember that extremely intelligent people can fall for the simplest of magic tricks, and I have
Yeah.
to remind myself of that because sometimes I do something which, if you know how it's done, you just think, oh, it's obvious, right? It's so obvious. Like, how are they not picking up on this? But and then all of a sudden, when it comes to the reveal or the punchline, they're like, "No way! Oh my god!" And you get like a big resounding, the whole table just erupts, and you're like, "Oh wow, okay." So, sometimes it really does go under the radar, like what you're doing, almost in plain sight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it still surprises me sometimes how the simplest of magic tricks get the best reactions, and then sometimes the most remarkable magic tricks that are so clever, they sometimes people are like, oh yeah, it was almost too impossible, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's crazy. All magic is they get different reactions, and sometimes, like I say, the lucky ladybug is always a hit, and it's obvious how it's done. It's just a
Yeah.
beautiful moment of surprise. And
Yeah.
it's also a little memento. Oh, I can keep that. No way.
Yeah.
And it's like a little memento of a moment in time where they suspend disbelief. And so yeah, I just love magic as a conduit for connection. It's such a beautiful thing to share with people. And like I said, I think I might have said it in my video but sometimes people don't remember the magic, but they remember the magician. They remember the person. They like remember the guy. So they're like, oh yeah, do you remember Fred? Like, and he came and shared all those things. They won't remember the exact tricks, but they'll remember,
Yeah.
the person that they spent dinner with on their 74th birthday. That this, I guess, the surprise guest. It's nice.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of like magic shows and I don't remember any of the tricks at all. I obviously remember some of the tricks that you've done for me because uh I don't know, like I have a relationship with you and they're more meaningful, I guess. They're not just like some like stage show, but even that, like you've done so many tricks for me and I remember like distinctly if I had to like name them, maybe like 3 of them, which is like crazy. But yeah, they're always fun and I think that that's
Mm.
like that's the whole point, right? Um yeah, magic is cool. I think it's one of those things that we all know that it's not real and we love to have that suspension of disbelief, which is the same thing that people have for movies and books and anything that you let yourself be, consumed by and emotionally attached to. And I think that I love that. I was talking about this recently. I had an opportunity to go shadow edit a TV show, and all I was doing was watching the editors edit. But we got talking about um, inconsistencies in that like editing and how sometimes that's just like the way it has to be because they've never gotten the shots and so they just have to have a shot with like one guy has a watch in one scene and then the
Hmm.
watch somehow disappears in the next shot or whatever. And I'm like, how can people be so irresponsible like when they're filming to forget that stuff? And I was like, people watching like have to notice. And she was like, you'd be surprised how many people don't notice that stuff. But I'm like, I always notice that stuff. If there's like his shirt's messed up or his jacket's off or and
Hmm.
but people love to have that suspension of disbelief when they're watching something, when things are inconsistent. Because half the time I'm
Yeah.
like, where did this part of the storyline go? Like, what's going on? And yeah, people don't
I
care because
often
they're involved. They're connected to it, right?
I often think that when you watch like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got
Mm-hmm.
Talent, when you have the judges, I swear when they edit, they look at the judges, they have these canned reactions, and then they
Yeah.
just edit them, like for drama. I don't suspend my disbelief when I see something happen and it pans to the judges. They could be reacting to anyone at any time. Like
Yep.
I don't believe it. I just think that they create drama in the most, I don't know, maybe it's the real reaction, but sometimes I just think they must have so many shots of the judges reacting in a certain way,
They
in a certain shocked face, that they must just be like, oh, we can chop and change that to create some drama. Like maybe maybe someone says something remarkable and they don't react, but they're like, oh, but we've got footage of them, like, Simon Cowell
Yeah.
making a an awkward face, and that we can put that in to create drama. I'm
Yeah.
almost certain of it. Like I'm not a fool.
Oh, they definitely do that. That's what I mean. We know, just like magic, we know that that stuff is not real. We know that, like watching Big Brother or whatever reality TV show that we love to watch, we know that shit's all bullshit, but we still get emotionally attached to it and taken along for the ride. And that's what magic does too. Like, we know it's not real. We know when we watch a movie, it's not real. We know that this stuff could never happen in real life. When I was watching the latest oh my god, he's Keanu Reeves movie with the dog. Oh my god, I can't ever think of anything when I swear to God I have Alzheimer's. But he got like he couldn't die. I'm like, the guy fell down the stairs like 400 times. I'm like, this is getting beyond. Like, okay, I have the suspension of disbelief. I'm like, okay, it's a little, I know this is bullshit, but I'm just gonna run with it. And then by the end of the show, I'm like, okay, like he doesn't even have a bruise. Like, what are we doing here? Everybody that he shot at died the first shot, and he's got shot at like 40,000 times. So yeah, we all know it's bullshit, but we still like the John Wick.
John Wick.
Thank you.
Is that the one? Yeah.
Yes, John Wick. Thank you, Jay. So cannot think of anything.
I've
But yeah,
never seen it, but I watched a movie recently. Oh God, now I've got to try and figure it out. It was one with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and it was on Netflix. And someone had come in the shop and they said, "Oh, I've seen this thing. It was really good." And I could tell why it was good, because there's this real twist in the story, like around about 3/4 of the way through, and you're like, "Oh, amazing! Did not see that coming."
Is it the one where they're like going to like a drug bust thingy, or they're going to get like that was a good twist. I can't remember the name of the show.
Jay's holding this conversation up. Thank you very much. Yeah,
that
it was called
a
The Rip.
really good twist. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great twist, but the movie, like the final third of the movie, was just totally way too Hollywood. There was a point where Ben Affleck was driving his car. He wasn't even looking, and he had an automatic weapon just going out the window. And I'm like, that's so irresponsible. You're firing an automatic weapon out the window. You're not even looking. You're still looking at the road. How many rounds of ammunition do you have? And also, like, there was just explosions. It was just so unnecessary. I just thought there was a really nice scene in the van. I don't know if you remember, with the cool lighting, the shadows, and the whole, like, the little bit of the story unraveled. And I thought it could have ended in the van. Like, I was just like, that would have been great. But they were like, no, we've got to have another, a car chase, some impossible, there was how many FBI guys shooting up the van, and everyone just ran away without getting hurt. I'm like, what the hell? So yeah, that's the point where I'm like, I liked this one bit in the movie, but the rest of it was just, I couldn't suspend my disbelief. I was like, no one's reloaded their gun in ages. They've just got like endless infinite ammo. And earlier on, like you when there's like disposable bad guys, you're like an absolute crack shot, bang bang bang, you're dead. But when it comes to like the one, the lead actors, like they can just easily outrun the bullets. It's just, what's going on?
I know. You know what's so funny about that movie? So I went to the bathroom right after the whole twist in the van, back of the van thing. And then Joe, I went and did something else, and Joe's like, "Are we going to finish the movie?" I'm like, "It's not done? I thought it was done."
Yeah.
I thought the movie was done right there. I was like, "It's done." And then when I came back to watch, I'm like, "What's the point of this part of the movie?" I'm like, "It's literally nothing." Like, it was just a weird ending. Like, they were like, "We didn't have enough action. Let's just stick it all in this one thing." Which I'm like, it's almost better when there's like a movie that you're like, "What's going on? What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, that's what's going on." Just end it there. It was good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was a really good example of the suspension of disbelief, and how ridiculous that was at the end. But yeah, interesting concept. I think that we allow ourselves as humans, when we're very logical creatures, and we just suspend that for entertainment.
One of the things that I liked about last night was, like I say, some of these guys were chemical engineers. Like, one of the ladies was a scientist. So those people are the sort of people that it's hard for them to like be like, "Oh, did you really read his mind?" And it was really interesting to some of it was so clumsy as well. And I love it when you think, "Oh God, that's so transparent what I've just done." And then they're like, but you made me choose the number 29. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, so you've completely missed like the actual method, and you've gone to like think that it's some sort of influence instead of mind reading. And it's so interesting that this one guy who was very very clever, very very smart, he was trying to reverse engineer the trick in a completely the wrong way, and I lent into it and I said, oh well, actually yeah. So one lady drew a clock, which I guessed, and I was like, and I'm just, oh, I'm sort of peeking behind the curtain here, but there was a clock on the wall opposite her, and another guy drew a mountain, but it looked like a volcano, and on the wall next to him was a big picture of a mountain. So I kind of leaned into that and saying, oh, you know, there's an influence, like there's a clock facing you and there's a mountain facing you, and interesting like that you drew those pictures. It just happened to be pure coincidence. But I love the like leaning into like pseudo explanations. It's really fun, and they're like, no way, I didn't even notice the clock, and it was just so utterly amazing. I love magic. It's great.
I think you have to be wildly observant to do what you do. I am literally not observant at all. If some when somebody does that thing where it's like notice all of this in a room, I couldn't do it. Like in like 3 seconds, I'm like, what do I notice? And then nothing.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So you have to be massively observant to do those things on the fly. Like I don't know how you're even able to do that, but that's really cool. Um, yeah.
Yeah, they
Geez.
kept saying I had a really good memory because I kept remembering their names. Like, well, three of them were called Chris, and my girlfriend's called Chris, so that was easy. But there was George, Andrew, Maddie, and Claire. And when I just call people by their names, they're like, I can't believe you keep like you've remembered everyone's name. I'm like, well, also I make a very conscious effort to remember people's names when I'm at a magic
Yeah.
gig because I think it's really nice to call people by their names. But these guys were like, well, that's such a rare skill these days to actually remember people's names. And I
Yep.
said, oh, you know, I played it off like, wow, three of you guys are called Chris, so that's easy. But yeah, it was just a lovely warm gig, and I also wanted to lean into. Did you watch my the video that I
I
put out
did. I
yesterday?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I wanted to lean into that. Not, I don't want to repeat myself because I know that a lot of people watching this podcast probably watched it. But if you hadn't, it's about me having a real effort to connect with strangers recently, like through magic and through my work, through my job. Yeah, again, without trying to repeat myself, when I first got the job at the supermarket, or when I was offered the job, I was a little bit hesitant. I was like, oh, you know, it's not as glamorous as the croupier gig, and maybe, you know, do I want to work at the supermarket, you know? But it's a lovely job. I get to interact with people every day, and I create value in the workplace. Even though I didn't think that I could, like there were able-bodied people that can stack shelves, sweep the floor, you know, do all sorts of tasks. But I'm everyone's favorite cashier because I'm sort of chirpy and I make conversation with people and I get complimented on that all the time. So I just wanted, I wondered if you had like any sort of reaction to that because you know we haven't really spoken about it.
I think that like, and I've said this before, your ability to turn everyday things into real, genuine learning experiences is fascinating and so valuable because I think a lot of people wait around for some big fancy things to happen, but all you did was reflect on what's already happening in your life, which is the job that you got, which you didn't actually have that great of a reaction to at the beginning.
Mm.
And like do that gratitude practice you have, and then a total reflection on how this is actually much more important and much bigger than what you might have actually thought at the beginning. Yeah, and I've had multiple people tell me that same thing about you, so I think that that's I don't know I don't know how you do those like stream of consciousness kinds of videos because I can't. I don't know. I don't think I have coherent enough thoughts. You can string together words in a way that tells some sort of coherent story in like I think the video was like 12 minutes or something like that. And I probably couldn't. I don't know how you do that, but it's yeah, it's a talent for sure. You should I don't know if like yeah, I'm not sure if that would be the same as the stream of consciousness things, but like almost like do a newsletter with like your journal entries or something like that. Like I think it would be really fascinating to see what you're turning into meaningful experiences out of everyday mundane things. Do you know what I mean?
I've thought about that, and I appreciate the compliment. I thank you very much. I, to be honest, I managed to. Sometimes I just knock it out in one take. I just have to be in the right frame
Yeah.
of mind. Um, and sometimes I kind of capture lightning in a bottle. I don't know. I don't want to stroke my own ego, but yeah, I agree. It was succinct and it was quite, yeah, it was well communicated. But yeah, I've thought about that. I just didn't know how popular it was. Like I say, like when you said about, I'm thinking about starting a new YouTube channel, just Brittany, like, because I think that everything that I've got to offer on Fredo the wheelchair guy has to be tied into the wheelchair theme, right?
Yeah.
So I
I
thought
was
about it
going to mention
beforehand.
something about that. Keep going, but I that just reminded me of something that I was thinking about when I watched the video.
But I was thinking about, I want to just talk about my life, my little life update, really. But how do I tie this into, wheelchair content? And I thought about it, and I was like, oh well, actually, well, I provide value that I didn't think that I could do. It's a surprise that they're asking me to come back for summer. Like, would you like to come back for summer? You're a great member of staff. You entertain the clients. I've been recognised for my value, even though I'm not as dynamic and useful as the other members of staff. And I was like, oh, that's something I can lean into. But other than that, I think there are things that I'd like to share that just aren't wheelchair related, but that stops me, and that's why I don't upload very often.
My thought when I was watching the video is that you were doing this great life update that was just about Fred, and then in the end you like tied it into something about being in a wheelchair, which I like, I appreciate, I suppose, if there's people that are stumbling upon your channel and they are in a wheelchair and that really matters to them. But I think the most important thing for people in wheelchairs is to just see other people in wheelchairs. And I don't think that every conversation has to be about the wheelchair, but I do think that that does matter some of the time. And so I struggle a lot with that on my own channel, just in terms of
Mm,
like what should I show, because lots of the time, like when I've done vlogs, travel vlogs or whatever, I'm not showing little details about how I'm transferring and how I'm doing these things, and then I've gotten flack for that. Like, you're not showing all these little things that are going to help me as a wheelchair user travel easier, and then other people could care less about it, because they don't need to see that stuff and it doesn't help them. So we do get stuck in that trap a little bit, that people are here for wheelchair content and they want that aspect of our lives in every video. And then there's other people who are here for us and they could care less about, how we transfer, especially if they're not new to the
mm,
wheelchair or that's not a struggle for them. So I think that we have to balance it, because ultimately we started our channels to help people who are struggling because we were struggling. And we don't want to leave them out or make them feel unseen or like we don't care about them anymore because we're like past that.
mm-hmm.
um, so I don't know. But I do think that there can be a mix. Like, it can be a balance. Like, not every vlog has to have every little thing. But like, I know that in the ones you've done, you have shown, here, this is what the shower looks like in this bathroom. And I think that that's important. But, does it have to be every single hotel room and every single stop of your stay? Probably not.
Mm.
So yeah, I
I
struggle with it a
agree.
lot too. But I thought it was um almost a little disjointed in this video, because it was very just Fred and then all like, oh, by the way, here's the wheelchair content just to make it happen. Which I haven't noticed in any of your other videos. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that what stops me uploading more is that I have to tie in a wheelchair theme, or otherwise it's not on brand.
Mhm.
And I don't know if many people care. Yeah, again, I'm not about any sort of views or vanity metrics. I don't really care. Like, there's probably a lot of people that just wouldn't care, but it is Fredo the wheelchair guy, is wheelchair content. Mostly I'm trying to. Mostly, I think that I know that I've got like regular viewers and stuff like that, and they mean a lot to me. Like the people that support me on Patreon, I love that. It's great. But mostly, I think newly injured people, if they find my channel, I want every bit of content I put on there to be useful. To be like, oh my god, he works in a supermarket and he creates really a value, like, and more
Yeah.
value than some able-bodied people. Like they may be able to stock shelves and do all this stuff, but they're grumpy on the till. They turn up late. Like there are some members of staff that won't be invited back, even though they can do more than me. So maybe I could create value in the workplace. By being more like Fred. Oh god, that sounds a
Yeah.
bit wanky. Sorry, but I mean, like, just
What would
you
Fred
know,
do?
what would
WWFD. Not like I'm comparing you to Jesus, but we should make a shirt out of that. I mean, if like we could start a shirt that's like, what would Fred do? Then people might journal more. They might see like the bright side of things. I'm totally making a shirt about that. Actually, you should draw. Just draw something funny, and I'll put it on my merch shop so people can buy a "What Would
nice.
Fred Do" shirt.
Yeah.
Do it for next time so that we can show the shirt design, please.
On that
That's
note,
hilarious.
I drew my mum a birthday card. It's in the post at the moment. I'd love. Well, I'd show it to you, but my mum might see it. But to be honest,
Yeah,
she probably won't remember. So by the time it arrives in the post, bless her. But yeah, I drew
that's
this
funny
cool
and
little
sad at the
picture
same time.
of
Oh
us
my
all.
god, that's the best.
Yeah.
Oh my
So yeah,
god.
it was just
Yes.
a little
Please
little.
make a design.
What would Fred do? That's
Yes.
so.
Just
Oh.
like just do like a WWFD. What would Fred do? And it's like an inside joke, and then draw a picture of some kind. People will know. It's just for the people that know. Um, I don't know. People exactly hashtag WWFT, and then they'll people like it's like they'll think it's like Wildlife Federation something. People were like, "Oh, are you an animal activist?" Like, no, actually, I'm a wheelchair admirer.
Oh
That's so
goodness. Yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I just want to do a couple of shout outs here because Connor, Brian's nephew-in-law, which he's just like, he's always on here commenting. Says, your perspective on things is amazing. The lessons you learn from everyday things, the positivity you look for in all situations, and overall views as for life is a great example. And something I'm trying to add to my own life. Thank you, Fred. Cheers, bud. So, and then his fiance, Brian's niece, is also on here today, and she has a podcast called Chrony Talk. If anybody wants to look it up, it's about living with a chronic illness. I agree, Fred. Your attitude and approach to life makes people want to be more positive and be a better person, practicing gratitude and kindness first. And these two people are literally the kindest, most positive people ever. Just like amazing. Brian has so many good people that I've met from his family and life, but these ones are very special. So thanks for watching. Like, it makes me feel so
Yeah.
good. I know that they watch for you mostly because they love you, and they watch
Mm.
for me too because they know me. But thank you for watching. I love you guys.
I can feel my head swelling.
He's like, oh my god, I can't take all of the compliments. Like,
You're just
it's too much
stroking my
today.
ego.
That's so
Oh my god! If
funny.
Chris listens to this, she's like,
She's
don't
gonna be
encourage
like,
him."
oh my god, this is inspiration porn. This is virtue signaling. What are we doing on this disability thing? We're just making
No, not
somebody
at
with
all. She sees a different side to me. So yeah, I think. Well, actually, we can. Well, let's loop back to the period thing because
sure.
this is really interesting. Oh my god, am I actually going to say this online? So one thing I've been struggling with lately is the lens that people see me through at work and at magic gigs and at stuff like that is beautiful. It's like, oh, and you know, beautiful comments like this in the comment section, you know, praising me, saying, "Oh, Fred, you're such a good egg. You're so wonderful." And how can I word this as delicately as possible? Sometimes I come home and it's not the same lens I'm viewed through. It's more of a condescending lens, which is amplified, you know, at certain times of one's cycle, and that is a very delicate thing to talk about, you know. But what I'm saying is sometimes that's hard, and that it's not a unique thing. Like, I've got a lot of friends at the moment that struggle with that, you know. So at the moment, Chris is amazing. She's reasonable, lovely, loving, warm. Last week, a little bit slightly different. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very 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 difficult thing to talk about. But yeah, sometimes there are times where it's very very
Yeah.
difficult to be in a relationship with someone, you know, a woman.
It I feel like that I don't know what the answer is to that because it's hard just to be a woman it's always the week before your period. So it's not like when you're on your period, like I'm generally fine, other than it's uncomfortable. You have cramps, and being in a wheelchair is really annoying because it's messy and you're trying to cath and all that stuff is stupid. But it's hard because you're emotional. Like I've cried so many times this week, like just about the dumbest shit. I've been so irritable. And then you cry about being irritable. And then I'm mad at other people, but I'm also mad at myself. I hate myself for being mad at other people. Like, it's just, I'm like, okay, like last night, I was just like, shut the fuck up, brain. I want to go to sleep. And it was just a cycle of like, you know, the house is messy. I hate Joe, but I actually love Joe. And I hate myself for hating Joe. And like, it was just ridiculous. And then I was like, I hate being paralyzed, but I'm so grateful that I'm not a quadriplegic. And how dare I not be grateful for my, level of paralysis? Like, it was just constant. I'm like, okay, mad, then guilty about being mad, then sad about being mad. Then I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And then eventually all the emotions just get tapped out and you're just like, you're like a shell. You're like, nothing can bother me right now. Bring it on. And yeah, you don't have any adrenaline left. You don't have any feel good hormones left. Like, it's just crazy. So it does suck to be a woman during that time. I know a lot of it is nutrition related because it depends on what I'm eating. If I'm eating healthy, if I'm exercising, if I'm sleeping properly, all of those things matter. And right now I'm not doing any of those things properly. I'm just not. I haven't exercised properly in like 2 years. I haven't ate properly in 2 months. And I'm just like, so yeah, I know that that's making it worse, but yeah, it sucks to be a woman during that time. And I don't want to be that like woman that's like, yeah, well, try having your period because that's annoying. But maybe just like, yeah, having
Oh
that
yeah.
grace and just I think the skill that men have to learn is shutting the fuck up during that week. just let us say whatever we want and don't do anything because we're going to get over it. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to be like, I'm sorry, I was a douche. I'm really sorry that I was being bitchy. But if you like engage with that, then it's like way worse. It's so much worse than if you just didn't engage, because we are having a hard time emotionally regulating. And when you engage, it just then makes it like 10 times worse. So that's like a terrible answer because, what I would tell my daughter is just that like you have to manage your triggers and all of that stuff. And it's not anybody else's fault. But I'm not going to the grocery store and spazzing out at like, the checkout person when I have my period. It's more like when I'm at home and there's people irritating me or leaving stuff on the counter or not doing their chores or even just like me peeing my pants. Like my bladder is most active before my period because your estrogen is the lowest. And when you have low estrogen, your muscles don't work as efficiently. So you pee in your pants more. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm grumpy and I'm peeing my pants and my spasms are worse and I have more nerve pain. And I'm just like, whatever it is out in the universe that's like, you know what? You should probably experience all this at one time. Why not? Let's just. So then it just makes me like super grumpy, but yeah.
No, I get it. I've got an app on my phone called Stardust. I don't know if you've heard of it. So Stardust is a period tracker.
Yeah.
But I'm signed up. So Stardust sends me notifications to let me know the stage of the period or the cycle that Chris is in. So it gives me like heads up. Like it's very funny some of the stuff it says. But if she's in the luteal stage, caution. Right now she's in the follicular stage.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? Oh my God, amazing. Like she feels strong, happy, agreeable. She's at the gym, she feels strong. You're like, amazing. Wonderful. Oh my goodness. If she was like this all the time, it would be golden. And again, take this with a grain of salt. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have this roller coaster of emotions every 28 days. It must be awful. Awful.
It's annoying.
But it's also quite difficult to live with someone who has that as well.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes like walk on eggshells, or rolling on eggshells, or what was the funny comment that made me laugh? You're rolling on thin ice, Fred. Exactly. So yeah, I get it, I get it. So yeah, it's again, and I've been with Chris nearly 3 years now, and it's still difficult, and sometimes I need to remind myself to have compassion and grace. You know, it's something that I can understand conceptually, but I can never understand,
Yeah.
you know, on a deeper level. So yeah, and sometimes I'm very grateful that I have like a level of a steady level of energy, like like all the time, you know. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh wow, like I don't have this cycle, you know. And it's yeah, I'm grateful for that.
I will tell you a million times over, like I said before, the nutrition thing does matter. Um, and there's, as we age, I don't know how old Chris is, but like it gets so much worse when you're like entering perimenopause and your hormones are unstable and you're just like losing the ability to make decent amounts of hormones. And you have to pay me even more attention to the food you eat so that you get the right nutrients, so that your body is efficient. As it's, shutting down, because we're like, who needs hormones as you get older? You're going to die in 10 years. That's what like evolution is telling our bodies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard because you live with Chris and she's a woman and she has these like emotionally hard parts of the month, obviously, as all women do, which are hard. It's hard for you to understand. And you're trying to have compassion for it, but you're also kind of like resentful of like, that's not my fucking problem. And then she has this thing where she lives with somebody that's a wheelchair user that has lots of struggles too in a lot of different ways. And you have emotionally charged and challenging experiences in your life. And she has that same thing where she's like almost resentful of it. That's like, it's not my problem. Like, I don't care. The toilet still needs to be cleaned. I don't give a shit whether you're in a wheelchair. And that's what happens when you live with somebody in a wheelchair, because it loses its, aw, you're so strong. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, I don't care anymore. It does not matter to me. We all have to get this same shit done that, everybody has to get done. And whether you're in a wheelchair or not isn't my problem. So I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic that you guys are learning to work through, because you're both resentful and understanding of these things that are challenging in each of your own experiences. But yeah, secretly you don't
Yeah.
really give a shit about.
No, I do, I do. So interestingly enough, I just want to highlight a couple of these comments. Like one is just shut the fuck up, and then someone, you said the same thing. Lol. So true. It took me so long to learn that lesson to shut the fuck up. So interestingly enough, she sent me a podcast called "Shut the Fuck Up and Listen," and it's a guy explaining from a woman's perspective, I guess, how to if your woman seems unreasonable and she's saying these things, which she is, it's a deeper need that's unmet. And I was like, oh, interesting, okay. And like I do get sound a little bit defensive. I'm like, but when does she take responsibility for like communicating effectively? You know, like
Yeah.
I get it. Like, you know, if she's being unreasonable, there's a deeper need that's not being met. But like she's still being unreasonable.
Yeah,
But anyway,
exactly.
but then had a brilliant chat with my friend the other day. His name is Tongi, and he is a really, I didn't realize how wise he was. Like he came over and I told his girlfriend, oh, you know, Chris and I are going through a bit of a tough time, and and she was like, oh, why don't you talk to Tongi? So I was like, okay, cool. So he came round and yeah, I was expecting like to just have these like anecdotes of like, oh, you know, I came home and she said this, and him to say, God, yeah, that's awful. Yeah, you're probably gonna have to break up, you know. But instead, he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, that sounds pretty tough, man. But like, have you thought about like the deeper need that she's trying to communicate? And I was like, oh my God, like this guy is saying the same guy that said on the podcast, which is really what Chris is trying to tell me. So now I'm like getting it from three different angles, and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah. And then it was really nice for him to encourage me to put down the magnifying glass and pick up the mirror, even though I was very convinced that, you know, that she had to do that. So it was really interesting to have these like, okay, maybe there are some needs that aren't being met, and maybe that I could do the things that she's trying to communicate, even though I feel like, you know, maybe she could do a better job of communicating them. But either way, I have the power to make the situation better. And it was really,
Mm.
really helpful conversation. And again, it's quite hard to, I don't want to say admit defeat, but I guess, you know, I always think that we're part of a team. And I don't like it when like I feel like the other person's holding up the scoreboard. I'm like, hey, what, a scoreboard? I thought we were on the same team. So
Mm.
it's but anyway, life's like that. You can probably relate to it. So I'm trying very hard to do my bit, to meet her needs, which I wish she'd communicate more effectively, but whatever. Yes.
Yeah. I think that part of like having your like
Oh,
but before your period is that you actually kind of lose a little bit of the ability to communicate effectively. I just think like yeah, I don't know what it is um about that. But yeah, I definitely think that there's definitely responsibility that is on the woman's part, because we can't just go around being total psychos because we don't feel good. But if there's like a week where the other person has a little bit more grace and compassion for our unreasonable requests or just our outbursts or whatever, then it definitely goes a long way. Because I know for me that if I get grace from Joe, I am 1,000 times more likely to try my absolute best next time to not be unreasonable or to communicate more effectively. But if I'm met with like last night,
defensiveness.
I was defensiveness, or just like grow up. You're having a temper tantrum. You're 40 years old, like that. I'm like, okay, I hate your guts. I'm never trying hard ever again. And yeah, it just doesn't work. Last night I was like totally spazzing out, and I was having a temper tantrum. I was pissed at my legs. I was pissed at like everything. I couldn't move in bed. It was like annoying. And I was being ridiculous. I didn't say anything to Joe. I was just being ridiculous on my side of the bed about my own self. And instead of being like, okay, calm the fuck down. Like that's what I think he wanted to say. But he was just like, is there anything I can do? Are you okay? And I was like, no, there's nothing you can do. But that went so much farther than him being like, grow up. You're having a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
So yeah, just maybe try asking if there's something you can do in the moment. And she might be like, yes, there's something you can do. You can clean the toilet better.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
might
yeah,
react
maybe.
like that. I don't
I
know.
will. I definitely have to try and have more compassion in those moments. I think sometimes, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like sometimes she'll say something, and I will, instead of like using a fire extinguisher, I will like throw gasoline back,
Yeah.
and it just blows up. And so yeah, I mean, I could definitely take responsibility for like I say, I don't experience it. Like I get a warning now. I get a warning on my phone, from the bloody Stardust app, like, hey, tread carefully. You're on thin ice, young man. So yeah, maybe I could absolutely. I just because most of the time she's fine. And I don't know. I don't. I need to be careful with what I say.
Yeah. She's
Also, she's
wonderful.
only next door, so she's probably listening right now.
Yeah. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that everybody deals with in a relationship. I think it's like age old. And I think now is one of those times where women have the freedom, more freedom than they've ever had before to express how irritated they are, because there was a time that it wasn't safe to express how irritated you were.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? You didn't discuss it.
Yeah.
You just bottled that shit up because that wasn't just like socially acceptable um, in your marriage or like in society at all to express that or even talk about it. So yeah,
Yeah.
this kind of brings up one stupid thing that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, which is like how the more freedom and ease we have in our lives, the more we complain. And I've noticed this so
Mm.
much, but I think that is for every gender role, for every, disability, for every race, every culture, everything. And I was thinking about this because at that editing thing, there was a lady there and she had something wrong with her hands. Didn't ask because I was just watching the editing, but she was probably like 65 maybe. And then later on, we got talking about it. She was diagnosed with severe rheumatoid arthritis as like a child, and her literal joints dissolved in her body. She doesn't
Oh
have
wow.
like finger joints anymore. She's got like floppy fingers, and like it was crazy. So I started talking about all this stuff, and then I was chatting to her about how long she'd been working, whether she had like a hard time finding a job with her disability. And she was like, no, I didn't have a hard time finding a job at all. And then I was talking to another lady who was like, she's almost 70. She's in a wheelchair. She's worked at a high level government job forever. And I'm like, it's funny that the people that I talk to that are old people with disabilities, like that are, seniors, they don't seem to think that they had it difficult. They did have difficulties, but they didn't have a hard time finding jobs. They weren't discriminated against. They just kind of lived their lives. But now, when I think that there's more human rights rules, there's more laws and stuff that protect people with disabilities and all people, human rights just in general, we seem to have more to complain about, which is so interesting because I see this a lot with like, and I'm just saying I'm observing this. I don't know because I'm not part of a different culture that isn't, or race that isn't white, but I see people complaining about, slavery or all these things that they didn't actually experience, but that they're still saying that they're oppressed from. And same with people with disabilities. Like there's so many things that we didn't actually experience. And yet we'll still complaining about that, like, we can't get into places. We can't do all these things. We're discriminated against in the workplace, all these things. And, I talk to these people that actually probably were dealing with that stuff more than we were, and they don't view it that way. So it's so interesting that I think as women, as just people in general, I think as the easier our life gets, the more we find to complain about because we have the freedom and we don't even realize we have the freedom to do that. We have so much freedom that we can criticize other people, the government, our, workplaces, whatever it is, without repercussions. And it's just an interesting observation that I've been making recently because, I've ran into these like situations where I was talking to people that have been paralyzed for, 40, 50 years and don't seem to have as much to complain about as people that have been paralyzed for 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you want to comment on that.
We all know people in the disability space that like to complain a lot and about things that seem quite entitled. So, but just to double click on what you just said, like when I was speaking to this lady last night, there's again there's a lot of people in the modern day that think that the traditional gender roles that existed were like almost like oppressive. And don't get me wrong, it was if women. Nowadays, women can get jobs, they can vote and stuff like that. It's definitely a move forward in the right direction. But this woman who had a very traditional, they had traditional roles, like they had the breadwinner and the housewife. She was quite happy. She called it freedom. She was like, I had the freedom to raise my children, take care of my home, and look after my husband, like because he provided everything, and it was very clear. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. That's such an interesting perspective to have. Like, and again, some people today might think that's, oppressive. Like, oh, the woman has to do this. But they were also commenting on like a wider social issue, which is like nowadays, men, well, generally speaking, like men and women have to both work to afford to live. Like it would be quite rare to find a man that could earn so much that his wife didn't need to work, and that would be, and if she didn't need to work, there'd probably be some sort of expectations, whatever. But anyway, that was really interesting. And another thing I wanted to talk about was, which ties into the last week's episode, was they had a little discussion about politics.
Oh yeah, you said this up again. Keep going.
Yeah. So it got into like talking about things that have been in the news recently, like for example, grooming gangs and the stuff like UK centric, like immigration and stuff. Mm-hmm. And there was definitely people that had differing opinions, but the fact that they disagreed so civilly, there were no raised voices. It was the polar opposite of the poker table, where when I was speaking about last week about disagreements about politics at the poker table, it was so civil. It was like patient. That he allowed him to finish speaking, and he was like, well, a lot of the grooming gangs, aren't blah 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 whatever. I don't really want to get into it, but like he was expressing a different point of view. He was allowed to finish, and then someone said, well, yeah, that's a really interesting point, but and then and then in the end, they said, "Oh, well, maybe we'll just change the subject, out of politeness." But I was like, I really wanted to bring it up. I was like, guys, I just want to applaud you on civilly disagreeing here, But I thought it was inappropriate, but because I didn't want to bring it up after they'd almost acknowledged that it was impolite to talk about it. But it was, I was just like, man, these guys are awesome. Like they're having a civil disagreement and then acknowledging how inappropriate it is, and then changing the subject was so wise. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, man, like I say, it's the polar opposite of what we were chatting about last week, and it was so awesome.
I think one thing that we have begun to forget is that being offended is our problem. It's not the other person. Nobody can, people can absolutely say something to trigger you and offend you, but being offended is not somebody else's problem, because what offends people is totally different depending on the person. So you could say the exact same thing to one person and somebody could be extremely offended and somebody could think it was hilarious. So we've kind of forgotten that as a society, and we tend to think that being offended is something that is somebody else's responsibility, that they have to be held accountable for. And when we have conversations about politics or religion or whatever, if somebody says something that triggers us because we believe in something and our values lie somewhere and theirs don't, then we think that they're offending us just by expressing their opinion or their values, and that they should be held responsible for that. So then we have to, dig in and tell them why they're wrong or whatever, instead of just being like, oh, that's so interesting. How did you come to that belief? Or why do you value that? Or, why is that so important to you? Like, we don't ask questions anymore. We're just so hell bent on like waiting for them to end their spiel so that we can say our piece and try and convince them otherwise. And I am just as guilty of this, so I'm not like speaking
Mm-hmm.
from a place of like I'm better than anybody, because I'm terrible at this, which is why I hate being on social media, because I have so many times found myself in the comment section trying to convince somebody of something that I believe, rather than trying to understand what it is they believe, where they came to that conclusion, or hey, could you like point me to your sources, or I'm so interested in this or whatever. And I've always found that if I've been curious and asked questions, the conversation has gone so much better on social media than if I've tried to convince somebody else in the comments. And if somebody posts something, if they value something so much that they post it on social media, generally you're not going to change their mind. So what is the point?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love that is something that you experience, because it's just in stark contrast to what we're experiencing now, especially with younger generations. We just have no ability to have disagreements or even discuss things that we may disagree on, to understand each other's point of view. Like we're losing that ability to
Yeah,
communicate
yeah.
entirely.
What you said about social media was actually really interesting, because you've just reminded me of how it ended, and they were saying, oh, well, I blame the media, like the media is to blame. And they were like, oh, and also social media, they really exaggerate the most extreme sides of each, that it's not a true reflection of the world when you look at through the lens through the news and social media. And they were like,
Yeah.
well, that's something we can agree on. And then they changed the subject, and I was like, wow. I felt like that's the most magic thing I've seen all night. I was like, wow, where that is missing from the world, and they were such gentlemen. They were such gentlemen. They realized that they'd got into a little bit of a topic that was making a little bit of the table feeling a little bit uncomfortable. They found a little something to agree on, and they changed the subject, and it was beautiful.
Mm.
They were true gents.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I think that's a very cool experience to have had. And I think that we don't practice that enough. I remember like when I was in high school, we had debates in social
Mm.
studies class, like where we actually had to pick really charged world topics. And now there's so much um, fear, I think, with teachers about being labeled as one side or another, or teaching something they're not supposed to teach. So they don't even touch current events. Sometimes they do a little bit, but we were specifically made to talk about what was happening in the news and to have debates. And we were given a side to argue for or against. And
Mm.
then we had to switch it. So like we
Mm.
weren't you argue the side you actually believe in. It was you're arguing for this side, you're arguing for this side. I remember having to write an essay on why Hitler was such an influential leader, how did he gain power, all these things that like so I had to pick out like what was great about Hitler. And you
Mm.
know, my I loved my social studies teacher and now nobody would even dare give that topic. Otherwise they would be labeled as a white supremacist or whatever. And I thought it was the best. It was like I had such an interesting experience in school because we were made to talk about uncomfortable things all the time. Um, yeah, I don't know. My teacher
Yeah.
eventually left and it started teaching
Yeah. Yeah.
elementary, so I don't know whether he was like reprimanded for it, but I loved it.
No,
It was
I think
fun.
that's great. When you try and steel man,
Yeah.
have a good faith argument for the other side is actually like is really good. I try and do that with Chris a lot. Like I ask ChatGPT. I say, look, this is what happened. You know, like obviously from my point of view, I'm in the right. But if you could steel man her point of view in the best way possible, give a good faith argument for the side that she's coming from,
Mm.
and help me understand her. And then it does, and it's like, oh wow, it's a really really powerful tool. I would encourage people to use it. You know, I like a bit of AI, but yeah, I was like, wow, it's so good because you could also easily quite. I think I've talked about this before. Just blurb to ChatGPT and say, validate my opinion. You know, tell me I'm right. But when you say, you know, where are the blind spots in my thinking? How could I, you know, am I looking at this the right way? Is there any way that, obviously I'm right, but if there's any reason that she could have a valid point, show me it. And then when it does, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds a lot more reasonable. And ChatGPT can communicate her point to me more eloquently than she can. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that does sound reasonable. So maybe I haven't looked at all the facts. I haven't seen anything. So yeah.
Joe did that. Joe did that a while ago because he's like, I'm going to try the thing that Fred does. And it actually worked really well. Um, yeah, so interesting. Um, yeah, I wanted to like just briefly, because I know that we're like at the end of the hour or whatever, see if you would be interested at all in talking about some like current events that are going on with some wheelchair influencers. So there's a girl called Wheelchair Rapunzel, and she's been in the news for she's being accused of essentially using her disability as like not clout, but like she makes her disability seem harder than it is for sympathy and to gain a lot of views or whatever. And she was just arrested or something and charged with a felony. I can't remember all these things, but like, so there's been some like crazy stuff going on with that I was like looking into. So I'm like, if we want to talk about how much to share on social, how much, because we're obviously YouTubers. So maybe next time we could
Mm.
talk about how much is okay to share and how much is not okay to share before you start being seen as that person that's like using your disability for views kind of thing. Because there's obviously a line there. So I thought that might be an interesting topic next time.
Absolutely. Is this the girl with the service dog?
I don't know whether she has a service. Yeah, I believe she has a service dog. She's been in the news for being cruel and horrible to her care aides.
Okay.
She has a daughter, and they said that they like she uses her for like views. Wheelchair Rapunzel. You have to look it up, but
Wheelchair Rapunzel.
I just thought it
Wheelchair.
was like an
Oh
interesting
no,
concept.
It's not the same person. But
I just thought it was an interesting like thing. There's not very many
just
people like I've never seen this before where somebody's been accused of using their disability. I've seen people be accused of using their children, leveraging their children. And my friend
yeah.
gets accused of that all the time because her daughter has a disability and they have a TikTok. So she gets accused of that all the time of using her daughter for views and all of that stuff. But I'm like,
Mm.
how what's that line before we are our disability, we're putting stuff out there to sensationalize our disability, because I don't think I'm guilty of that, and I don't know whether she's actually guilty of that because I don't really follow her,
Yeah, yeah.
but she's been accused of that. So it might be an interesting topic
I would
to
love to
talk
talk
about it.
about it. We can talk about that another time. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about the girl that I highlighted once, where she had a service dog, and she was like, "Oh look, my service dog can open the fridge for me." Do you remember it? And I shared the clip, and I was like, "Mate, just open the fridge. Like what? It's just
I know. There
I
are
was
some like
like,
really funny
you've
things.
trained a dog to do the simplest of tasks for you. I don't understand why. Like, it would take less effort for you to just learn to open the fridge than it's like
Then
she
to
was a
train the
paraplegic.
dog.
She was a
Yeah.
paraplegic. Well, she didn't have it. She
Yeah.
had full hand function. And I was like, what the hell? Like, yeah. So anyway, this wheelchair Rapunzel, just a Google image search has brought up some very bizarre images. So yeah, I don't know anything about her. I've never seen her
Yeah,
before, but
do a little bit of research. We can have a little bit of a conversation about it. And maybe I'll try and find some other things in the news of people who've been accused of yeah, either or taking money maybe that they didn't deserve because they were able to, get money for a van or something for their disability. Because I've seen a lot of that lately. Is that like somebody's got a GoFundMe to get a wheelchair accessible piece of equipment? I know Amber and Nevin, they're like a fairly new TikTok couple,
hmm
and Nevin was paralyzed maybe like 2 years ago, and they've raised a lot of money for his equipment, like sports equipment and stuff like that. So is that ethical? That kind of stuff, to use the platform to get that kind of stuff. I don't know. I have so many questions about that stuff. So maybe we can have a conversation about that.
definitely, we've planted the seed. We've planted the seed.
Yeah.
So
If
anyway,
there's
yeah, go on.
I just was gonna say, if there's anybody that you would like us to discuss, or anything you've seen, or any influencers that have made sort of like headlines or whatever about this topic, then yeah, throw us an email or put it in the comments, and we'll have a check, have a look to see what we think about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there were some comments I wanted to highlight, but we are ending now.
Oh,
I just want to say thank you
go
so
for it.
much. I've been following the comments, and there are some wonderful ones. So thank you so much for the engagement, for the lovely, kind compliments, and we will see you next Monday or Tuesday. I don't. Maybe we'll go to Monday unless I get another random magic gig. But yeah, maybe we'll go for Monday. But anyway, we'll let you
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. I forgot about the thing. So it's Family Day on Monday next week, which is like a holiday here.
Oh,
And
if
I'm
you
pretty sure that I'm gonna be home, but it might be easier if it was on Tuesday next week again, just so then I don't have to. Hang on, I have to see what my yeah. If it might be easier if it was on Tuesday, but I don't want to like
sure.
confuse people.
No problem. Well,
Okay,
we'll let you guys know. It could be Monday, it could be Tuesday. It'll be a
okay,
surprise. It'll be a surprise. Anyway,
okay, okay.
thank you very much, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Brittany. It's been a great conversation today. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for allowing me to share my magic story and engaging in some thoughtful discussion.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for all of your comments and for being here, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.